All right, I got a game, and I have to ask. I've never played it before, but I walked into Gametopia in Gamelandia in Palo Alto, California. They have this amazing game shop, and I have this really bad good habit that if I walk into a game shop or a comic shop, I always buy something. That's kind of my personal rule to support local businesses. So I was quite happy, in addition to picking up the Sherlock Holmes game, because my wife was with me, and there's this Sherlock Holmes RPG game that's award winning. And so I picked that up to play at our next cottage vacation, when we want to whodunit. I also found this, and I've never played it before. It's called Star Trek Star Realms. It's a deck building game. Has anyone seen it? Educate me before I open it. Look, it's not even opened yet.
I have it over here on the shelf. I haven't opened it yet, but I recently picked it up just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I have not bought it yet.
All right. Well, I have friends who go over their house for dinner about once every 2 months, and we each pick a game, and we each take they introduce their game, we play it, and I introduce. So this is the game I'm introducing to them when we go to their dinner house next Friday night. So I'll let you know how it is.
Very cool.
All right. Always nice to have new games. I'm Michael Dismuke. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, lead writer for Captain's Log RPG, and just writing on a lot of stuff recently, which is really fun. Thank you, Star Trek, for opening me up to the universe of IP writing plus other things. And of course, this show is not a show unless I have with me Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log Solo RPG, both published by Benefius Entertainment, plus project manager on some other projects. Also a freelance writer, working on various and sundry things, publishing books, nonfiction, et cetera, keeping busy, diversifying my writing portfolio, as you do as a freelance writer in this day and age. You got to be working on a variety of things. We talked about that last week. And with us again this week, no stranger to this show, Al, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Al Spader. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures. I'm also a game designer of the Sentience role-playing game and the Once Upon role-playing game. I also just submitted my first ever project for Achtung Cthulhu, so I'm excited about that.
Expanding.
Cool.
And as you know, whenever this trio gets together, we are the kings of riff. I really do believe that. I mean, we can riff about anything. So we decided to capitalize on that, because one of the biggest things I think we all agree we like to do is inspire other people to write and to play the game. After people listen to the episode, I always imagine that they're really mad that they're at work or driving to work if they're listening to this as a podcast, and they wish instead that they were home writing and creating stories. So we have a really cool topic tonight. Do you want to introduce it, Jim?
Yeah, happy to. So I thought, just in our last episode where we were riffing with the technical manual, we briefly touched on like campaigns and structuring campaigns and making sure that the chief medical officer had cool stuff to do by using the medical chapter. And then I kind of concepted and expanded that out. And then talking to you guys offline, it was like, well, why don't we have an episode where we just talk about how to structure not so much a campaign, but like a season of a campaign, right? Now, of course, in this day and age with gaming online and gaming in person, sometimes it's challenging to get people to commit to a schedule or commit to a long-term game. Maybe you want to just do shorter games, but let's just, hypothesize in an ideal world, you've got a group of players who are getting together to play Star Trek Adventures, either online or offline, and they've committed. They're like, okay, let's play a campaign of 3 seasons of 8 episodes per season. They're willing to commit to 24 episodes, whether those episodes are actually individual sessions or each episode is multiple sessions, like whatever. In your head as a game master, you've got 24 episodes to plan over the course of 3 seasons. What does that look like? Now, the reason I think about that, and I really like it because as a writer, I need an outline. I'm not a pantser. I need to have that structure so that I know where I am, where I'm going, and where it's going to end. Even if it's broad strokes, I've at least got those milestones that I can start hitting and then start filling in. So, with Star Trek, then you've got your player characters, and for the sake of this discussion, I think we should say we've got 6-player characters, one from each major department. That just makes it easy. Al, you're wearing the yellow hat. Maybe you take the two. You can talk about the two command, or you take the two command divisions. I guess I'm wearing a blue hat, so I can take science and medical. And Michael, that would leave you with engineering and security if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah.
So in fact, we can even hypothesize we're all in this game. We're all co-GMs. How are we going to do cool things for each other and to keep the story going, right? So maybe just with that, that's where I'm thinking we should go. But Michael, Al,
I like it. No, I think we agreed we're going to talk about Spice of Life episodes. What that means for people who haven't picked up the Game Master's Guide or the Player's Guide. Spice of Life means what we saw on TNG or what we saw on Voyager or Strange New Worlds or TOS or TAS, where each show, you can watch out of order because it's just going to, be its own thing. However, if you do watch them in order, you see character growth. And I always like thinking about Worf or Geordi LaForge, where you see them over one season up rank, or you learn a little bit more about their family. You see Geordi go from being a Conn to being an engineer. So what we're going to do is talk about it. Say if it was one season, say, like to Jim's point, 6 episodes or 10 episodes with a bunch of Spice of Life. How might we design it so that our different departmental characters can grow among that time episodically? We're going to riff about that. You want to add, Al, before we get started?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what some people often refer to as episodic television, right? And what we're hoping for is to talk about how do we do individual plots and that give our characters of different from different places chances to shine and grow. And if I like the idea of the 8 episodes that Jim had mentioned, because if you have 6 players, that's 6 main characters that should each get a chance to shine at some point over those 8 episodes.
Good. All right. And if you want to, we can use random tables on any of this. I have my captain's logbook handy here. And so what we'll do is, I'll start with command and I'll do the engineering characters plot. We'll go over to Jim for medicine. We'll go back to Al to talk about how his Conn character develops. We'll go back to me for security. And then Jim will close it out with his science character to show how we're going to do this. So in this 8 episodes, Spice of Life, why don't you start us out, Al? What growth do we see from your command character, and which command character is the captain or the XO or someone else?
Yeah, I think that I think probably some of the best ways to show growth, especially from the first episode, if it's the first time we're meeting, is to show an XO growing into that captain position. That's probably the type of story that I would like to, after sitting down with a session 0, talk with my players, find out a little bit more about their backstories, and I would say to my XO, so do you see yourself growing into a captain's role at some point in time? What would that look like? So I would know that as I'm pacing my 8 episodes, that I would give that character a couple of chances to take the center seat, so to speak, to watch them grow. And maybe they do really horribly at first. In fact, that would be ideal. And then really overcome that bad moment later on in the season.
Okay. Anything specific you would like? Would it be a location, a person? What would be the conflict that causes the growth in your mind? A diplomatic incident?
Yeah, my feeling, I think, would be a failed diplomatic incident where the captain was off on an away team or something like that. The XO steps up, it has to deal with the situation, fails, loses an ally, potentially, and that character has to come to grips with that and not let it turn them, away from the path of trying to be the captain.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Good. And we could see an episode, so that could be growing, and then one episode kind of crescendos that scenario, which would be really cool.
Yeah, and then maybe a couple of B plots along the way might touch upon it as well. And maybe the big cap on that character growth arc is that ally that he chased away initially comes to help in the end or something like that. But that would be over the length of the season.
So a recurring character is going to be
Yeah.
written into a couple episodes. I like that. Very good. Okay. Engineering is next. I love drama. So I like creating an engineering for the engineer character. I wanted to have a problem that has nothing to do with the technical solution. Why? Because I would imagine my character is not great with persons. And that is maybe what drove them into engineering and loving a ship more than they do people. So I almost want to throw in the fact that perhaps, their uh, good family member who's been mentoring them has been trying to get them to be a little bit more personable. They've been distanced from their family. They're almost in an avoidance from it. But I would want a character arc where after initially this engineering is set up as cold and impersonal and really only wants to talk business all the time, is forced into a familial situation. And perhaps it's a crisis or an episode where they're away from the ship. There's no technology around. Maybe they're on their family's agricultural plantation on a planet, something they wanted to avoid. But now there's this crisis that they have to solve with their family and doesn't involve anything technical. I would want to build up to that. I would early on have them build up as this cold, calculating technical character. And then all of a sudden you find out in this epic episode equal to like Inner Light, that again, Inner Light, they were pulled away from all technology, right? And one of the best episodes of TNG ever with Picard, that they just have this episode where you're like, oh, they are human or Vulcan or whatever they are, that they do have this other side that all the skills and knowledge in the world just do not help. I just love heart tug stories like that, pulling them out of theirs.
That type of episode is really enhanced by planting seeds earlier on in prior episodes, right? So you need
Correct.
to get that cold-hearted, I'm not social like interaction in episode 1 right away as we're trying to figure out who everyone is on the crew. And you're like, oh, I don't want to, like, this guy is,
Yeah.
and-
He's like, I can fix everything, but I can't fix this.
yeah.
I don't have a tool for this.
hmm
Right. I love stuff like that. I would try to write the episode so everyone at home is hurting for him because maybe they resonate with their own block they have confronting certain issues.
Yeah, that's kind of like a trope too of sci-fi where you get this kind of, jackass character who people love to hate at first, but then by the end they love them. And how do you build that story throughout? I love the idea. I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make people really like in season 2 with this character. You see, I tend to see that people are afraid that in awkward situations they're going to be alienated. Yet when you are actually exposed as a weakness, it gives the opportunity for the other team players, the other crew members to rally around. Like, we got you. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And by season 2, I'd want this person to be like, okay, these people love me. I need to start showing them some reciprocal love. Right? Yeah. All right, Jim. On to medicine.
So medicine, I think it would. I would love to see what my what player came up with the doctor, and what kind of doctor are they, and what kind of interesting things could I do with them, because I love the idea of what you're saying with your engineers, to give them a long-term storyline that has nothing to do with medicine and has everything to do with them as a person, right? Like, and one example is Dr. Crusher in Next Gen. She was, of course, the chief medical officer, but she was also a single mom, right? And so at least in the early part of the series, she had Wesley to kind of deal with, and there were several scenes where she was not the chief medical officer, she was being mom and trying to deal with that. And I think that's really got a ton of potential storyline possibilities to play with, because it's like maybe your kid and your chief medical officer are not on the best of terms, and there's a lot of tension and push pull on the ship, and it's not hunky dory, more or less like Crusher and Wesley were, but it's a different relationship. So there's that you play with. I also like the Mbenga, who's got the secret daughter in the transporter buffer, and you've got several episodes that are touchstones on can he cure this thing. And of course, no spoilers, but he didn't. It just, circumstances took it out of his control. But So that's an interesting possibility. It's okay, you're a doctor with an ongoing problem that you are attempting to solve over the course of several episodes. It's
Mhm.
effectively a B story for the overall campaign, but for you, it could be your A story, and that you just don't touch on it all the time. So I like that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, that was well done. I have to comment. Mbenga's storyline was incredible in Strange New Worlds.
yeah.
I had never seen that done with a medical character before,
Mhm.
where they had a through line to that level. The Doctor in Voyager, yeah, becoming becoming sentient, but something so powerful in one season, that was so well written. I love that.
Mhm. And then the third one I was thinking about is the last campaign I ran. It was four-player characters. One was the Doctor, and the other three were, various and sundry characters. But all three of those other characters had significant medical issues that the Doctor was kind of the connective tissue among all three of them, and had individual, consulting sessions with the three of them. Like one of the player characters was infused with Borg nanites, and those were the only things keeping him alive.
Oh
And the
wow.
doctor was trying to work with him to figure out, is this permanent, or can we wean you off of those nanites and find another solution to take care of you. And I love those kind of ongoing things where maybe there's not a happy ending, right? And then the doctor and the patient have to kind of like come to terms with that over the course of a season arc, to say, we've tried all these different exotic remedies, we've tried other things, we've tried some aliens of the week that we run into. There's not a solution. You're going to have to, this is your new reality, this is your life, and we can't fix it. It's bittersweet in a way, but I think that's just something for
Mm.
cool that a doctor could play with.
Okay, I want to go through these real quick because I want people to envision Spice of Life. But so far, we have the EXO. How would you sum up the journey of Al that you talked about for your EXO? What were you summing up that drama as?
It's the failure of a diplomatic ally situation, where he accidentally insults the ally and loses them.
Got it. Okay, and the engineer was no tools for feelings, like this personal drama, no tools for solving non-technical issues. And Jim, are you going to go with the no solution, bittersweet kind of like
If I had to pick one, I'd go with that one. Yeah.
the doctor who has to deliver bad news, basically? Okay, so the whole season they're struggling to find a cure and they fail.
And just constant fails. And I would not want to set it up as constant failure, because I wouldn't want to frustrate the players, right? I would
Mhm.
maybe give them, there'd have to be an opportunity for some successes along the way.
Yeah,
Like maybe they're developing breakthroughs in nanotechnology, but those
right.
breakthroughs don't actually help this
Oh,
current
I love that.
situation.
Oh, I love that. That's so heartbreakingly wonderful.
Right.
All right, so let's circle to Con. You're going to see why I asked you to give me summations in a second. What about the Con? What would be his or her their
Oh, I
through line?
I I think that, like, a lot of people, when they think of Khan, they think of just piloting the ship, but,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot more you can do with a Khan officer, especially with managing the flight deck and whatnot. So one of my thoughts, would be is we get this story where, the ship discovers it may be a crashed ship, and it happens to be an enemy, maybe the Romulans, and they're on their 5-year mission far away from home, and they find these Romulans that they take onto their ship as passengers. And the Romulans are all, the rest of the crew don't trust them, and the Romulans are depressed because they can't get home. And how about if a con officer takes the opportunity to get to know these Romulans, and finds that
Mm.
they love building starships and whatnot, and they start working, or he guides them through building a shuttle in the shuttle bay or something like that. I really like the whole concept of the Delta Flyer, of bringing the team together. The Rosalind from Battlestar Galactica, that was one of the greatest things ever. So I like the idea of the con officer helping, um, basically bring these Romulans on as part of the crew,
I love
through a
that.
shared experience of building a shuttle together or something like that.
Is the con officer, what species are they? I'm very curious about what species they would be
I mean,
to extend the olive branch like they're doing.
yeah, I think it would depend what era you're playing in.
Mhm.
I do think that having it be a younger character, whether it's a human or someone that's relatively inexperienced, maybe an ensign that is trying to get this, accept these Romulans as part of the crew.
Oh, I love that. And what's so cool is that's almost a very Icheb Voyager. They brought on the kids,
Hmm.
the kid Borgs, and you see them in some episodes, you see them and don't, but when you do see them, you see them at growth points. So you'd be able to see the Romulans at growth points
Right.
throughout this first season. That's super cool. I love that.
Yeah, and maybe
Mm.
some of the relationships with the con officer and the rest of the crew start to deteriorate because
Mm.
why are you spending so much time with those Ramis? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a cool story arc that you can do there.
Yeah, I would probably write some values that kind of force this con officer to play into that too, because there's going to be a lot of pressure for them not to, and they're going to have a lot of. I want values to give them opportunity to challenge their values,
Yeah.
which and create complications when they do,
Yep.
which would be really cool. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, security. I'm going to get weird now. You have to have one weird character, right? So I picked the weird security character. The through line for this character that I would want to intrigue the audience with, they're a security character who is somehow breaking the temporal prime directive because they're getting intel from their future self. But they feel it's worth breaking the temporal prime directive because of a greater complication that has some connection with the XO's failed diplomatic issue. So it's a greater good character. Maybe at the end of the season, they don't make it past it because there's going to have to be a JAG hearing or something. But either way, consistently through each episode, they're getting a message at the end from themselves. And I would just let that build up until it has some relevance to solving the season closer.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe it creates JAG issues in season 2. That's what I would do, a through line with this weirdo character. And maybe they're a species that can just tell the future anyways, almost like, and maybe it's an Elorian who is that a breaking of the prime directive when it is your species ability to tell the future? Ooh. Wait a second. Don't steal that, Paramount. That was actually a really good. How do Elorians deal with that? We've never seen that. Is it a violation of the prime directive? It's an Elorian security. This is an Elorian security character. That's it. That's the through line. Done deal.
Wow.
Done deal.
I love it.
Oh man. An intelligence officer. Oh man, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves Jim with science.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael, anything else you wanted to add for your?
No, I'm done. That was such a good idea. I don't want to talk about it anymore because someone's going to steal it. Jeez. Why do I say this stuff out loud?
Nice. Well, because we're riffing, we're having fun. Science. Of course, all these characters would be bringing their own baggage with them, and there are plenty of other threads and strings we could be pulling on. But I think I would want to be intentional about giving the science officer something long term to dig into as scientific research, but I would want to structure it. Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's like I would like. I think it would be really fun if it was extra, or a species from another dimension or another plane or another subspace level or something that's just kind of tweaking the character, right? But I would need to give it a good payoff at the end so that the player didn't feel cheated, right? Maybe the aliens learned something from the player in their dogged determination or whatever. But I just love the idea of dropping red herrings on this science character and giving them little successes along the way, little failures along the way, and making it just vague enough so that if some weird thing happens in the episode of the week, they could maybe tie that together and say, oh, that's related to the thing I'm working on. And then that can send them down a path of research and study in the next episode. And they're like, oh, it connects. Oh, maybe it doesn't connect. Okay, maybe it does connect. And then as this carries on, they're building this whole elaborate, scientific thing that ends up going kind of nowhere. that's where I would have to give it some thought. And this is something I could stretch out over a couple seasons and just keep dropping infuriating hints at them, and give them occasional payoffs. Right, if it's a gigantic extended task, right, give them occasional payoffs here and there, and some little benefits or something. But then have it all end up being, I don't know.
I'm hearing what I love about it. I'm hearing or perceiving this character to be a fringe scientist that is barely viewed as a scientist.
Right.
Like they're so out there. Everyone's constantly like, this person, are they really are they a complete whack job? Or are they a scientist? But the payoffs keep keep people clinging with them, you know?
Yeah. Like I'm thinking about that one episode of DS9 where Jake and Nog are chasing around trying to do the fetch quests to get the card for Ben Sisko. And there's this guy, there's this crazy scientist guy who's building this solitary hyperbaric chamber of solace and silence. He's a total crackpot, but he's built this huge elaborate thing, and he's trying to sell people on how awesome it is and how it's going to extend their life forever or whatever. And it's just, there's just enough science there that it sounds plausible, but he's a complete whack job. So something like that.
Do you see this character as being a Starfleet member or someone not from Starfleet?
I mean, it could be a civilian. It could be a civilian assigned to the ship for whatever reason, or maybe he's or he or she or they have convinced the Federation to give them a grant on this crackpot science, and they're convinced that it's going to go somewhere, but they need the resources of a Starfleet vessel to make it happen.
I love that.
And the Starfleet vessel is going to be going by. Maybe its primary mission is to study pulsars or something, and they can tie their research into the pulsars, and I can just feed them little like non sequiturs and random bits and pieces. Like, it totally connects. Absolutely.
We've never seen that before, like a crackpot scientist the entire season. Which would be kind of neat. I would really like to see that character in there. And what's funny is now that we've all talked and we've riffed, if I'll go do a quick review and then we'll talk about where this could go as a season, because you got the XO who failed in a diplomatic incident and really burnt bridges with the ally. You got this engineer who, great at the job, but bad with people feelings, and has a big dramatic episode showing, how hard it is for them to deal with feelings. You got this medical character who's making medical breakthroughs, but not enough to solve the tragic issue. You got this Conn officer who really is starting their career in the command track by really being more diplomatic than the XO. Successfully by bonding relationships, right? I mean, there's something the XO can learn from the Conn officer with bonding relationship with these Romulans who are trapped on the ship. You got this Elorian security officer who's violating the temporal prime directive, or are they? Because it's their species, and it's going to lead. They're doing this to lead up to a solution at the end, and then you have this fringe scientist who knows what the heck they're working on until the final episode when this all comes together. Why the security officer wanted to make sure the Romulans stayed inside the ship without telling the Conn officer that it was important that they did, and that the fringe scientists had to be encouraged to do their work. And actually, those allies are actually enemies. And even though the medical officer failed to save that one life, the nanite technology is key to saving billions of lives at the last episode.
Yep.
Right?
That's how you bring all those plot lines together,
right?
Into maybe a 2-part finale or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, these are fantastic characters and fantastic plot lines. The episodic.
Wow. Yeah, and then you just figure out which episodes of each season are going to be the big moments for each character, and then you just kind of string it along and make it happen.
Yeah, yep. And the thing is, we could take these 6 characters now, walk into any module that's already been done, mission briefs, and start playing them, because these are the lines that are leading to the GM crafted final episode,
right?
Where all these clues play. I think Al's seeing it happen now in our game. We're in our final episode for our 5-year campaign, and I'm bringing everything they learned back. It's called Reflections. They're in the mirror universe. And everything they learned in the 5 years is now being tossed into the final episode, where they're like, oh, wait, we dealt with this then. And it's helping them solve the situations. It's kind of a good reward after a tough campaign, right?
Yeah. And again, this is just one style of running a campaign, right? With the episodic nature and then the character through lines. You can absolutely, design other types of campaigns, and maybe we'll do a couple of other episodes around those other styles, the more cinematic, the more sequential and whatnot. So,
we will. All right.
The riffing never ends. The riffing never ends.
Never ends. All right. Continuing conversations. That's what we're about. Yeah. All right. Fantastic. We're just trying to, again, spark your creative juices out there. Everyone's a storyteller. We encourage people, if you don't feel you're ready to GM your own game yet, find 2 or 3 people like us and build the story together. Even if it's sitting around the table and then grabbing your dice, running some random tables just to create your world. Once you start, you can't stop. And find people who are like with Jim and Al and me. When we get together, we can build a whole campaign together, just riffing with ideas like this. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do gratitude. My gratitude is going to go to, he's going to love this too, because he listens. This is one of our diehard fans who comments on almost every single YouTube video that we put out too, and actually continues the conversation with me on text many times. Mario Skidmore. I've known this kid since he was like 7 years old. I'm close friends with his family because we were in a congregation together that did a fully American sign languages for deaf. And his father is deaf. And so we're good friends. But since about 7 or 8 years old, I've known this kid. And he's a hardcore RPGer. He plays so many games. He plays way more than I ever do. He's just always grown up doing that. And he's a faithful listener to our show, even though he's never played Star Trek Adventures RPG.
Wow.
But he listens every week and he comments and stuff like that. So Mario, I want to say thank you, because I just appreciate, if you're our only fan, that you're so consistently communicative. And it does keep me going, seeing your comments every week on our YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Mario. Hal?
Yeah, I'm going to have to. I mentioned earlier that I just turned in my first Octung Cthulhu adventure. So John Houlihan is the project guy over there. And I appreciate John reaching out and asking for me to do some writing for him. And I'm excited to potentially do some more.
Awesome. And my gratitude goes out to a game store, not local for me, but I was in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago for a conference, and had time to spend part of a day going into Asheville, North Carolina. And I went to a game store called the Wyvern's Tail. So Wyvern's Tail, it's a very cute little store right there in Asheville, and well stocked with all kinds of board games, card games, RPGs, minis, etc. And of course, like Michael said at the top of the show, I can't help but buy something when I go in there. Support your local game stores. I bought a little card game for my family and I called Cat Lady. It's very fun. It's basically a trick-taking game, but it's cats. We're all about cats. So
I gotta say thank you for going to Asheville. First of all, just not only did you support the store in Asheville, but Asheville got hit so hard by the storms last year. My sister's in North Carolina. I go to Asheville about once every year when I visit her, when my sister. It's one of the most beautiful towns in America, but it got totally devastated by the hurricane. So the fact that you went there to support a small business is so amazing.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Anyway, so hats off to the crew that manages the Wyvern's Tail. You got a great store, and I really enjoyed my time there. So thank you, and of course, thank you to all the fans of Star Trek Adventures. Without you and your support and your conversations online, I don't think we'd still be doing this game. But grateful that you're here. Grateful that you're here with us on this amazing ride. Long may it last. And grateful to both of you, of course, as always, being here on the show riffing. So it's a fun time as always.
Awesome. All right. Well, IDIC.
Live long and prosper. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk to you all next time.